At this time, we have guests from the military, and our guest speakers is Colonel Bob Bueller and Monica Jazz. Bob is a retired colonel from the Army Reserves, and Monica is still active yet, right? In the National Guard. So I'll let them take over the presentation.
Well, this is not my first speaking engagement, so however, we're going to try to see what we can do here today. First off, I really want to know how many of you folks out there are actual veterans. If you just raise your hand. Wow. I want to say thank you for your services. Like Richard said, I'm Colonel retired Robert Bueller, so I have over 30 years. Came in December of '81, and it was when I was commissioned at Whitewater. And then I went on active duty for 12 years, and I couldn't make major, go figure. I think that's what that guy said, that one colonel told me one time, you're never going to see captain, so I figured I'd skip right over and make lieutenant colonel. But anyway, it was during the drawdown in '93, so being a reserve officer on active duty, being a voluntary indefinite status was kind of hard for me. So like many of my other comrades, we pretty much got booted out, I think I should say. So I volunteered and got out, but I couldn't hang it up, so within 4 months I got back into reserves because I was a reserve officer all my life, and I picked right back up. I was overqualified with my peers. I picked up major right away. Then down the road I got battalion command, picked up lieutenant colonel for that, and then right after that, the icing on the cake, I got full bird colonel. And so I've been pretty blessed in my career. And then Monica Jans is a specialist in the National Guard, and I think, how many years you got in now?
3 years.
Oh, here, take that one.
Okay. I've been in the Army National Guard for 3 years. I joined in August 2010, went to basic and AAT, was home for 3 months, or a month when I was told that I was going active and getting deployed. So this is the longest I've been home in 3 years, and I've been home for 7 to 8 months. I have 3 years left in the National Guard where I can either further in my career in the military or I can get out. And I'm still determined.
So my hat's off to her. Her career starting if she continues to pursue it, whereas mine is gone. I retired December of 2011, and I was ready. I got my cheat notes here, so yeah, if you want to click it, I got that. And then, let's see, I got my cheat notes, so I'm going to be the first of the half. Well, let's see, I can probably stand over here so I'm out of the way. Basically, it just says over there, coming home, experiences in Iraq, Afghanistan. Got my little disclaimer you can't read in the bottom. It says it's our personal presentation, so we don't represent the Army. We don't want to get them in trouble. Okay, next slide. Kind of came on with you there, didn't it? This is just a quick slide, just to give you guys a background on Iraq, which was where I was served. 31 million people. And my little note here to stay on task says it's just to give you a quick perspective of Iraq in relation to Wisconsin. Note that Iraq only has 36 miles of coastline. In Wisconsin, what do we have? Water everywhere. Relatively low lands, if you can tell by the map. So their mountains are way up there by Iran. And has a population of its capital, of Baghdad alone, contains more people than the entire state of Wisconsin. So it's like 7 million people, and we got 5 million plus almost 6 million here. How many people do we have still left in Iraq? How many soldiers do you think we have? Think we have any left in Iraq? Are we totally out?
45,000? 35. 65,000.
65,000?
40,000.
I don't know. The last I thought was we only had about 100, but I could be wrong.
100?
100 advisors plus contractors? We did draw down quite a bit, but that's all that I know. I really don't know the true story. Next slide. This is just basically a gee whiz map. I was in what was called Army Materiel Command, and I was a detachment commander down in Rock Island, Illinois. So the little arrow with the circle tells you where I will go. I had to go 4-hour drive every once a month, sometimes twice a month. Being the rank I was, depending on the positions I held in the previous, I would fly all over the United States and go to different bases all the time. So I went to Atlanta quite a few times. I went out to Washington, went down to Texas. When I was a G4 for the 416th Theater Engineer Command, we went from about 300 some soldiers in our company, our headquarters detachment, to 12,000 soldiers in 1 year. So that was a big change, and I was the property holder for all that stuff. AMC is the Army's premier provider of material readiness technology. Basically, if the soldier shoots it, drives it, flies it, wears it, eats it, or communicates with it, AMC, which is I was part of, provided it. And a part of AMC, we like acronyms, so anytime we whiz out an acronym, just raise your hand and we'll tell you what it is. If we don't know it, it's probably because we've said it so many times, we know what it means, but we don't actually know what the acronym is. But anyway, Joint Munitions Command, or JMC, manages the production, storage, issue, and demilitarization of all conventional ammunition for all military services. So they provide the Navy, the Air Force, the Army, the Marines, the Coast Guard, and a few other agencies, all the ammunition. And that was really an interesting tour down there, so I sat in a lot of the briefings with them. AMC is headquartered at Redstone Arsenal in Alabama, and it's present in 50 states, 150 countries, and it has about 70,000 dedicated military and civilian employees who are highly developed in weapons development, manufacturing, and logistics. Okay, that's boring. Let's go. This is just a typical staging area at Camp Arifjan. Well, when I was there, I couldn't take pictures of all this stuff, so this is an open source picture I got off the internet because people get kind of, when you're sitting there with cameras snapping everywhere. But that is typically what I saw there. When I was there for 6 months, a colonel and I would jump in our vehicle and we'd go on what we call the bunny hunt. Because the units that we were with would always tell us one story and we go, that don't sound right. So we'd go down there and we'd find extra vehicles still in the parking lot that they forgot they had. And we'd point it out to them. But I mean, every night it was amazing. You'd come in the morning, go out and look, and everything that was there is gone. And the next day it just kept moving up north and back south. All right, next slide, please.
Sir?
All right, yes.
How much of that stuff was left there?
You mean in Iraq?
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it, you're not going to bring it home. It's just too cost ineffective to do it. So I was part of the drawdown with AMC, and the unit there, what they did was they measured everything by containers. They said, okay, we've got all these containers over there. Let's just concentrate on how many containers leave Iraq, and we'll worry about what's in them later when they get to Kuwait. And so it was a good philosophy because you figured that everything in those containers, if it left Iraq, it was coming back. And then they also had teams that went around and inspected those containers to see what was in them too before they sent them back down, just in case there were any surprises. I was amazed at how much stuff was there. Some of that stuff was still there since 2003. Some of the original containers, some of the stuff they were finding. And what happens is units will come in, they'll pick up the equipment from the last unit, and they'll say, oh, by the way, that's your stuff over there in the container, here's sign for it. And they open it up and go, okay, it looks like it's all there. And then it just keeps, and then when they got their stuff, they just pile it in there and forget about it, and the next unit comes in, and there was just a boatload of stuff. It was amazing. But in that environment, the dust and all that stuff is just too harsh on that equipment. It's not salvageable. But we did send a lot of vehicles back. AMC had what they did, they'd send a lot of the vehicles back to depots. So there was this program that they had to automatically take so many vehicles back out of country, send them back to depots to keep the civilians employed there in the States to rebuild the equipment. This is a variant of the Cayman, right? I know it came in two variants, a 14-ton, and this is the 24-ton version. And it protected the soldiers pretty well. But there's a political side to it, and I'm not going to get into that because you can go on the internet and look this stuff up. It has pros and cons. 70% of the world's bridges can't support this vehicle. So you can't drive them in the streets out here because they're too heavy. But they did their job. But it was a political expediency to get this equipment over to the soldiers. And so it came in like 7 different variations. And in those 7 variations, there were a lot of variations of those too. So I think like 36 variations of all these different vehicles. And in some cases, what I saw there was they'd have like 7 of these in one line, and they were going to put wiring harnesses in them. And no one wiring harness fit the other one. They were all different lengths. Because they just were in a rush to get those over there. So there was no standardization. All right, bye. And how much do you think those vehicles cost? Take a stab.
$500,000.
$500,000. You're right. On the average, about $500,000 a pop.
And that's a minesweeper, right?
No, it's called the MRAP, which is a mine-resistant. Oh, what's my name here? I used to call it something else, but mine-resistant ambush protected carrier. But it was designed on the African vehicles when they had them. They had the V bottoms, so when the blast would go away, the tires would run flat. I mean, these things had a lot of stuff in them. She can tell you. The last one, just a side note here, the last officially closed MRAP lines on October 1st, 2012. There was, at the date, 27,750 MRAPs of all types rolled off the assembly lines from 7 manufacturers. And there are about 12,700 still in Afghan right now. Okay. Oh, here we go. There's my picture of my first C5 ride into Iraq. I had a guy across from me take a picture of me because I was all suited up and all excited. And I hated that when they landed because they did what they call the crazy iving or something like that. I don't know. I mean, your stomach was going everywhere. That down there is a typical what you see on a base in Iraq. This was up in northern Iraq. The T-walls were all over the place. There's cement barriers. Basically, so when a rocket attack or a grenade attack or something came in, or a mortar attack, I should say, it would protect people from the fragments. All right. And I was there from June to October 2009. And that's the typical barracks or typical quarters that we had for AMC and a lot of the other agencies. Got to remember, by the time I came in 2009, we've been in that country for 6 years. So, you know, as human beings, we like to upgrade our living conditions. So they're actually quite nice, and then they're not. They're just containers. They tried to make them nice. I mean, they actually had them joined together, and they have a bathroom in between you share. They had air conditioning. Oh, that was nice. But the bags, the sandbags, I mean, I don't know what they were worried about because we never got any rain. Okay. And if there's any questions, just holler, jump in. Back up in the top, there's kind of a typical same thing. They just stacked them all together and put some tin roofs on them. You'd see those contain those, what do you call it there, where they have the pallets of water. They'd sit out in the sun. So when you go grab your water, you got to put them in the fridge or they're too hot to drink. And then down at the bottom is a typical,